So will dealerships come over to the EV side, if you like, or will we be left battling with them as they die a slow, painful death? And that's what we're going to look at today. Hi, and welcome to Coffee and Kilowatts number 11. This one is about dealerships. We've covered dealership charging before, but this is specifically about dealership selling. How will dealerships be able to move from the traditional model of selling gasoline vehicles with all the maintenance plans and upkeep that comes with those vehicles to electric vehicles, which require significantly less in the way of routine maintenance, often go a lot farther without needing any kind of checkups, that kind of thing. I'm here at a Ford dealership just north of Boston. This is one of them that will be getting the Ford Mustang Mach-E, at least as far as we can tell on their order configurator. So this seemed like a decent place to stop and have a think about what the future of dealerships will be as we start to get more and more electric vehicles on the road. That's going to be a significant barrier to some legacy manufacturers especially. I'll ask the question, look at some of the topics, and then hand it over to you for comments. So grab yourself a coffee and let's talk about whether dealerships can evolve or if we have some tricky roads ahead. Cheers. So before we get started into the topic, I just want to give a quick nod to Jeff Cudd of findthebestcarprice.com. Jeff set up his site after his wife asked him to help buy a car in 2007. He is, well versed in the RFP process and decided why wouldn't that work for dealerships as well. Went through the process of doing it and has started to fine tune that into his website, findthebestcarprice.com. So we were talking about dealerships, what the future was for electric vehicles, the various ways that they're being sold right now, and provided a bit of inspiration for this topic. So thanks to Jeff. You'll find a link down in the description there for his website, and he's starting to get into electric vehicles a good deal, so worth a look at the site. We'll start with Tesla, just because they're the ones that essentially have kind of moved the model towards buying online, trying to have a fixed MSRP and knowing exactly what you're going to pay when you check out. They have been the force that's moved to convince people you can buy online, you could get a car, reserve it way before you've even seen it, and maybe even take delivery contactless. You see problems with the Model Y and people having to rebook service center appointments. Hundreds of thousands of satisfied Tesla owners who have liked that process of buying, being able to go online and just do everything there without having to do the dealership haggle. So clearly it's a way that works for a good deal of people. Tesla has had to navigate the franchise laws in various states that some states have allowed them very quickly to sell. Obviously California, Massachusetts here was fairly early on back in 2014, bringing court cases that got them the right to sell through be able to sell at their showrooms if they wanted to, but also just buy online and deliver through showrooms and delivery here. More recently this year, January 2020, Michigan removed their ban finally. There's still some legal issues around how Tesla can sell there, what service centers are allowed to do. There are in some states where they're only allowed nominally a certain number of showrooms, so there are lots of little vagaries, but essentially Tesla is winning that battle to sell their cars the way they want to sell them. So we can see that will be the path that some like others will go. Rivian, more recently Lucid, they're going to be the kind of startups, all electric startups that will sell online, and others are starting to do this as well. The Ford Mach-E, coming to this dealership here, was down to typing in my zip code and finding the local dealers who were signed up for the Mach-E configurator. And that's the start of this evolution from selling the cars on the lot, having people come in and go through the dance that some people love of haggling over price and all kinds of contracts, or just saying, I ordered online, I told you what I wanted, let's get the delivery set up. We'll have this model where the existing franchises of legacy automakers have to compete in some way with online sales and these more nimble startups who have decided to go the digital route. So for dealerships, original dealerships today in 2020, how do things look? We can go back a year and look at a Sierra Club survey from 2019, which said that 74% of auto dealerships around the US are not selling electric vehicles. EVs are only a small part of national sales. There are only, a certain number of models available, and some categories aren't even represented by electric vehicles yet. So there's no all-electric trucks. We have very few options in the large SUV segment. But you start to see, the Cadillac Lyriq announced, the Cybertruck coming down the pike, Rivian's R1T, the R1S being a larger SUV. So you're starting to get these larger batteries, vehicles which are going to go further, be much more comparable to their gasoline equivalents, and will start to get into the segments that people want to buy. These dealerships are going to have to figure out how they want to sell these vehicles, and that's going to be from the main brand, the automaker, to tell them how they want to go. But there's a lot of power on the dealership side to either not want to sell these things. So there's plenty of Chevrolet dealerships that are not selling Bolt EVs right now, for example, even 4 model years in. So that brings over the question, what do they need to do? What do we need to get from these dealerships? Where they need to improve, and what we can expect if the dealership model does continue, what we need them to know in order to even begin to sell electric vehicles. So do we even need dealerships as we transition to electric vehicles? Well, although the Tesla model has obviously proven its mettle, people have flocked to it as a way to buy cars with, minimal fuss and get the one they want at a price that they see on the screen. It's still, people like a service center near them in some cases. You'll still hear the pushback that I don't think I could own a Tesla because there's not a service center within 50 miles of where I live, or I don't want to get a Polestar 2 because they talk about only delivering within 150 miles, and I'm not sure how they're going to fit in with the Volvo dealer service network, that kind of thing. So there's a complicated relationship between how people buy the car, but then the support they need post-sale. And that's pro dealerships, because people may not like the experience of going to buy an electric vehicle at the dealership, but once it comes down to moving into the post-sale experience, there are a decent number of people who will want that service and will like it to be just down the road. If I buy a Mach-E, this is right here for me. We're going to have somewhere right on our doorstep. Now it's Boston, so of course the same can be said of Tesla. There are service centers and showrooms all around the city. But that's still, in other places that is not the case. So in that sense, the dealership network can become a plus. You're in a lot of places, you're established, people generally know where their local dealer is of a certain brand, especially if they're loyal to that brand. And it gives the dealerships and the brand a leg up in terms of selling that vehicle because there's something local to rely on. We can't go to every dealership with the Bolt EV because not all of them are Bolt EV certified. There's probably GM will be one of the companies that has a faster track for that, as you would expect Ford will, and probably Volkswagen Group with their various brands and having concrete models coming out within the next 12 to 18 months. But there's still this need. Someone's been towed. That is not a Mach-E, just in case anyone was wondering. It's probably the largest thing you can say for, in favor of keeping the dealership model. People are used to them. They have them in places they would like them to be, and it's a sense of peace of mind beyond the Tesla kind of mobile service network and the uncertainty of a new company. These brands bring 100 years of automotive history, a established network, and large size infrastructure that they can use to fix electric vehicles, assuming they get on the bandwagon soon enough. So as we're at a Ford dealership, we should talk about the Ford Mustang Mach-E, and that's obviously one of the cars that's a non-Tesla car that is closest to coming out and starting to help these dealerships understand how to sell electric vehicles. Now, this is one of the dealerships that's on the Ford website when you go to configure a Mach-E. And that's going to be interesting to see how these roll out. Now, we've had initial reports, as we had with the Hyundai Kona Electric and the Bolt EV in early days, of dealerships marking the price up. You had the immediate kind of pushback of, well, this is what happens when established automakers and their dealership networks sell electric vehicles. But I put that down to more supply and demand. These things are early days, people have a high interest in them, and there's an early adopter, get the tech as soon as you can element to it. So that will go away as more and more of the models come out and the production of these things gets to higher volume. So I don't see that as a particular issue. It would be the kind of thing that pushes these companies and the brands to say, look, we just need to agree this price online. We want to be able to do it through our own website. We want the experience to be a Ford experience or a Volkswagen experience, and we want to keep everybody within our ecosystem. So let's get on board, let's get the workflow streamlined so that when the customer eventually, having ordered something, goes into the dealership, they are able to connect the physical experience with the positive digital experience. So in terms of making the transition to electric vehicles, it obviously requires a lot of new training, some different technical skills to keep electric vehicles on the road, knowing the difference in how they operate, the kind of dynamics of road tripping being a little different at the moment, understanding the size of a pack, how people can charge, educating them about home charging, different speeds of charging. Electric vehicles come with much less maintenance on the routine, just because the brake pads aren't going to wear out as much due to regenerative braking, not needing oil changes, variety of different elements that mean you probably, unless something goes wrong with the car's electronics, you do not need to get into a dealership quite as often. There's not as much of a routine maintenance schedule. So that's a downside for dealerships, because they count in part on bringing you back, having you come in for these routine maintenance. It starts to become a question mark over, well, why would we sell these things if we're not going to have to maintain them? And that's a big source of our revenue. So that is something you have to get over. If you accept the argument that electric vehicles are coming, the next decade they're going to start to get down to price parity, and a lot of the reasons that people don't want to consider them or haven't considered them in the past are starting to fall by the wayside. It comes down to the dealership to ask yourself, what is our essential role when maintenance becomes less of an income, but a customer needs other things? Do we sell more accessories? Do we look at subscription through different services, software updates? A lot of this stuff Tesla does automatically, but you can see them starting to get into the subscription game of paying for things on a monthly basis, or upgrading your car through the infotainment system, maybe a point of sale within the car that they could generate money. That will become something that I think dealerships will start to see as a positive of electric vehicles and the technology that they bring. And beyond that, you hear dealerships talking that they do want to sell. Take an example. I picked up on EV News Daily recently in an interview with Trey Woosty, Beachmont Auto Group, and that's down in Cincinnati, Ohio. So not an area where EVs have penetrated that heavily just yet. But they're saying, he says, we don't care if it's gas, electric, biodiesel, rocket fuel, we want to sell cars. So, that's a general, got to put a good vibe out there on any kind of thing that might sell. But that isn't necessarily people's experience with electric vehicles and people selling electric vehicles. If we go back to that Sierra Club survey, a lot of these people were talking about problems with the cars not being sufficiently charged to take a test drive, or respondents saying that only 25% of dealerships had 2 or more EVs on the lot. 44% of dealerships that did have electric vehicles had no more than 2 EVs available. A lot of it's just silly logistical things, but there's still an element of difference, and the training needs to happen. There's an investment in understanding how to sell and educating the dealership salespeople. Many different factors that go into translating that sentiment, even from the dealerships who are receptive to electric vehicles and selling them, to actually doing it well, understanding the cars, understanding what EV drivers will need. Do you think dealerships have a place in the future? Does it bother you in a Tesla kind of world that you don't have the same service network that you've experienced with gasoline vehicles? Or is it just the way things are going and you'd much rather have someone come to your home, or to, you know, go relatively infrequently to these places that are a bit further away? Do you think that intermediaries are the way forward? Do you think these third parties that can help you navigate the traditional networks are also going to be useful in helping you buy a electric vehicle online? I want to get Jeff on from findthebestcarprice.com to talk about this, and, you know, talk about his experience and where he sees it going from someone who has, you know, sold cars online for the last 10-15 years. But for now, obviously, it's over to you. You have the floor. So hoping for another good conversation down in the comments. Leave your opinions there if you would. Really want to hear from you. I appreciate all your suggestions, and if you have any topics you'd like to have covered in Coffee and Kilowatts in future, please don't hesitate to email me. That's down in the description as well. As always, thanks for watching, enjoy your coffee, and speak to you soon.